Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary, Orchard, and I are super pumped because WWDC is underway. The keynote has already taken place, and so we are going to tell you about all the things you can get excited about, or as many as we could possibly cover, in the next iteration of Apple's various operating systems. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by Trade Coffee. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/iOS Today. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Get started by taking their quiz and let Trade find you a coffee you'll love. And by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/iOS Today. Whoa, hello, and welcome to iOS Today. This is the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, watchOS, iPadOS. Look, it's all the OSs that Apple has on offer. And folks, Apple just wrapped on announcing a bunch of new features for these various operating systems. Very exciting stuff. We are going to talk about some of the coolest features we saw announced on stage here on iOS Today. I am one of your hosts, Mikah, Sargent.
And I am the very, very silly Rosemary Orchard, who may or may not already be running all of the betas, though not on the machine I'm coming to you from, because I didn't want everyone to kill me.
Yes, I also refrained from installing it on my main machine, my Mac Studio. I keep it pure and white as the driven snow. But the Intel MacBook Pro I have sitting next to me is currently running macOS Ventura, and I've got an iPad that is running iPadOS 16. I do not have an iPhone running any betas yet, but I think you do. And so we've got, a lot to cover today. And so this is one of those times where there's so much to cover that we're not going to be able to go in depth on a lot of these features. So understand that because this software is in beta and later this coming year, or rather later this year, we will be able to talk even more about some of these features in depth. But let's kick things off with one of the big changes that I think a lot of folks are going to be excited about in iOS 16, which is that you basically have an Apple Watch built into your lock screen on iOS 16. That's kind of how I've seen this new feature. Tell us about lock screen changes in iOS 16, Rosemary.
Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. So I really wish that my phone was playing ball and it wasn't doing this thing, whatever this thing is, where it shows up on my screen. It just shows up as black. And I'm guessing that's a beta problem, because on my actual phone, it's so pretty. So you tap and hold on your lock screen, just like you would on the home screen, when you go to rearrange your apps or uninstall things and so on. And then you get options that you can control and create multiple home screens. So you have a whole bunch of preset ones which are available to you to create and configure and so on. And there's, all of these other great things that you can add in the form of widgets. So we've had widgets for a while now on our home screens, but now you get even smaller widgets, which are more akin to, say, your Apple Watch complications on your phone, so that you've got, different views of things like the home app and stuff, so that you can actually see all of the different things that you might like on your home screen right there, ready for you. So that everything just, is there. So you tap your home screen and you've got a beautiful little option of all of the things that you might have been looking for. So I have just attempted to send Mikah some of the pictures of my home screen, because unlike me, he's not foolish and he's not running the beta. So unfortunately, the screen recording that I did didn't work. But this was right after I launched into iOS 16. So this was still my old home screen from the beginning. And then I went and I had to play with some of the other ones. Of course, I did have a crash, unfortunately. But Mikah, if you pop maybe to the last images that I sent you, the ones I sent just now.
There we go.
I've just added another 3 for you in a special stack. So so you can customize this. So we've got the 3 areas. So we've got the date area where you can add more information. So you can add weather or calendar or similar. And then you've got your time, which you can change the font of. And the date and the time, those 2 are color linked together. So you can set a color and how deep or light that color should be on those, which is really nice. And then underneath that, you've got the widgets where you can add 4 small widgets or 2 medium widgets across, and they are left aligned, which is something I don't know if we will see stay. It seems to me to be a little odd, but the biggest change for me is moving stuff to the bottom. They put notifications at the bottom of the home screen, the lock screen, Mikah. So now when I pick up my phone, like it's kind of under my thumb, and I don't know that I love
it. Okay, so you just made it feel
right there.
You just made it feel more logical, because I have to say that going into this, I remain not sold on the idea that having those notifications on the bottom makes sense for me, but that's just because I'm used to them being up above. But the idea that they're closer to my thumb when I pick up my phone that makes sense. And that is something that I think will make it easier to be able to dismiss notifications easily. Or in the case of, as you're showing a little video on screen here, being able to quickly access the controls right there at the bottom of the screen instead of up at the top where you've kind of got to reach your thumb up to get to it if you want to. So that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, at the moment, obviously, we've only got the different widgets that Apple have given to us to put onto our lock screen. So, for example, the Home app is there, and there's various widgets to give you things like the temperature inside of your home or how many lights are on. And there's weather. There is calendar. I believe there's contacts, and my phone has just finished uncrashing, so I can show that. That's only the second time it's crashed, I have to say. So I'm quite impressed thus far. But it's they've got a surprising number of batteries is the other one, so you can see the battery of not just your phone, but you could also see the battery of, say, your AirPods or your Apple Watch right on your lock screen, which I know, especially the Apple Watch, for a lot of people is problematic because they don't necessarily see that the Apple Watch is running out of battery. There's clock for either showing you a specific city or a world clock. And your next alarm as well. Fitness to show you, how much activity you have possibly not done, and reminders and news are the other ones. So you can have a quick list of reminders, which is a small widget, which is quite nice. And I have to say, I'm impressed thus far. This seems pretty cool. And I look forward to seeing what widgets other developers give us as the iOS 16 beta goes on, because there are so many cool applications for this. And I know I've already seen some developers talking about these things where they're looking at it and going, oh, right, yes, this is what I want to add to the home screen right now for this. But also as people come through with ideas, I'm sure that this is going to increase massively. And a big change, which consumers might not notice to start with, but I think is important, is WidgetKit is kind of merging with complications on the iPhone, on the Apple Watch. So the complications on the Apple Watch will also be created with the same framework now, which means that if you get a widget, you get a complication. If you get a complication, you get a widget, which means that for developers, that's reduced load and double win for us consumers, right? Because our developer friends do a little less work and give us even more cool things. Great. Love it.
Yeah, and we've got some photos here. Up at the top, you can see these widgets for being able to know that you've got an alarm set, your activity for the day, and then also a little calendar information. And then here showing some customization options between astronomy, the Pride screen, and color, different types of color versions. So lots of different options, lots of different customizations. And I think that this is good because it pulls things more in line with, I think that Apple definitely saw how much people love to customize their home screen and make it just uniquely theirs. And they said, you know what, we could do this in another place and make it possible as well to, if people on Apple Watch love that glanceable information, let's bring that to the iPhone. And at the same time, there are rumors that the next version of the iPhone will have an always on display. So being able to have these widgets that are low powered, or widgets slash complications that are low powered, that are glanceable. That idea is quite a nice one. So lock screens, huge for WWDC, and I think huge for iOS, iPadOS going forward. Okay, let's move to the next one, one that I'm very excited about. It is a feature that is available. It's going to be available in watchOS and iOS, and it is medication tracking. So this feature is actually kind of an all-encompassing feature that has quite a few different bits and bops connected to it for being able to track your medication and being able to be aware of different stuff that you need to know about your medication. So I've talked before about how I use a third-party app to be reminded of medication that I'm supposed to take each day. And what this new feature does is it will actually let you log your medications that you take, the vitamins that you take, the supplements that you take, either with your iPhone or with your Apple Watch, and then set up a schedule for it so that it will actually remind you, hey, it's time for you to take your medication, and that can pull it out. One of the things I like about this is that it does pull it out of whatever reminder app that you're using where you're doing other things. Because for me, maybe I don't want to share with the world what medications I have to take. And when those are in reminders, then I always have to kind of make adjustments, make edits in order to get those to disappear and be able to pull that up. So Rosemary has sent me some screenshots here of the kind of process. So whenever you add a medication, you can add the name here. You can choose the type of medication that it is. So capsule, tablet, liquid, or topical. There are other forms, of course, like cream, which is probably topical. The strength of the medication, including the unit. And if you don't have that information, then you can go past that. And then the frequency at which you take it. Regular intervals on specific days of the week is needed. Basically, they're doing all of the things. They're making sure that they've got their bases covered on all of the ways that a doctor actually prescribes medication. And then it will also let you show the color of that tablet or capsule or whatever it happens to be so that you make sure that you're grabbing the right medication. And then it will say, hey, it's time to check in to make sure that you've done that or taken that medication. And what I like too, what I find that's more important is that Apple is using a medical database of drug interactions to give you information about drug interactions. So you will actually sort of be alerted to the fact that, hey, because I was thinking about this while the show was going on. A lot of people don't realize that there are some supplements or vitamins that will interact with the medications that they take. So they might tell their doctor, or their doctor might already know about the medications that they take, but they don't necessarily know about all the vitamins or supplements that they're taking. And St. John's wort is one example of this, where that medicine, when you take it, can essentially make other medications more potent because of the way that it affects your metabolism. And so you could end up essentially taking too much of a medication that you normally take because you're also taking that vitamin. So this is great because it'll help you know, hey, I see that you're taking these two, and there are some interactions that you should be aware of. So really cool stuff. Very much looking forward to trying that out and having other people be aware of how these work.
Yes, I do think it's worth mentioning. When I've tried setting this up, I have thus far not actually had access to that medical database. Now, this is obviously very early in the beta process. Apple literally announced this yesterday. So it's entirely possible that they just haven't rolled that out yet. Or it's possible that I'm not inside the US. So because I'm not
Yeah.
inside the US, I don't have access to that same information. There are various medications that go by different names over here. So is it Tylenol is what you call paracetamol, is what we call over here. So, obviously they're the same medication, but they have different names. And so I can try to add another medication and it just goes straight to the medication list for me. It doesn't give me an option to scan it like they showed. So I'm guessing that may be something that comes later in the beta process, or maybe that's going to come afterwards, or just not at all to other countries. But what I do like in particular is the notification that I got this morning. Literally just said medication reminder, time to log your 8:13 medication. It didn't say what the name of the medication was. And logging that in the health app was actually pretty nice, which I did send you a screenshot of, Mikah, appropriately blurred out. The last one is what it shows. Obviously, I've only taken this for one day so far. But it's right there and it gives you kind of a little calendar view. I think it's the next screenshot.
Gotcha.
There we go. Yeah. Perfect.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Really
you'll
well
get like a
done.
little calendar ticker, I think is the right word, to show people or to see yourself what you've taken and so on. And I like as needed medications. I really like that. A lot of people have things like painkillers that they might take ad hoc for a headache, but it's worth logging those just in case they've got an interaction with something else that you're taking. And if it's all in one place, it's much safer.
Absolutely. All right. And then I want to briefly mention sleep tracking because this is a feature that's available in watchOS and iOS. And basically, because Apple has such a huge swath of Apple Watches out in the world and are able to, with differential privacy in place, collect metadata and be able to understand how our bodies respond while we're asleep and while all that's going on, they are able to use Apple Watch measurements to more accurately determine sleep stages. The be-all, end-all method for determining sleep stages is the way that sleep stages were first sort of named and recognized, which is, of course, with an EEG, not an ECG, but an EEG, an electroencephalograph, where they connect diodes to your to the outside of your skull to measure brain electricity. And using that, they are able to look at brain waves and see which waves are going when. And through that, they're able to tell the stages of your sleep. But what we've come to understand is that respiration and heart rate are also linked to those different stages of sleep. And so if you can get enough data and feed that to a machine learning model and say, these people, we know for a fact, because we've done the EEGs, that when they are in this stage of sleep, they are their heart rate and their respiration is like this, and look at the differences between that and have basically the computer sort of figure it out from there, then you can more accurately determine what stages of sleep someone is in. So Apple is leveraging all of the data that they have on that to be able to better provide for sleep tracking in the next version of watchOS and iOS. So I'm looking forward to seeing what and how well these devices track sleep stages. And so we shall see how that goes. And there's also a new research study available that you can participate in related to sleep tracking. All right, let us take a quick break before we come back with iPadOS, because I want to tell you about one of our sponsors today. And that sponsor is wake up and smell the coffee, folks. It's Trade Coffee who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today and bringing you this perky version of Mikah Sargent. Trade Coffee is awesome. Basically, you go online, you fill out this little quiz, and it helps you figure out what coffee is right for you. So, can you hear the crinkle of the bag? I got in the mail a bag from Wonder State Coffee. I'm not sure where they are based. Let's see. Wonder State, like the small Midwestern town we call home. We know you don't. I think they're from Wisconsin, Viroqua, Wisconsin. And this is called Peru Estrella Divina with flavors of white raspberry and Chardonnay. And it was originally, the beans themselves were grown in La Coipa, Cajamarca, and of course then were roasted in Wisconsin. So I haven't opened this bag yet, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up. A little tab on the front, like many a coffee bag. And inside, we've got some this is interesting because typically I am a medium to dark roast person, but this is actually a light roast that they feel I would like, which is kind of interesting because they use that quiz to determine what coffees you might like and then send those to you. And I said, hey, I kind of want to explore. I want to try some new things, try some different things. So I imagine that's why they sent me a light roast here that is full of scent. Yep. So at breakfast time, if I'm going to have a coffee, I like to have a juicy coffee. That's typically one that is, oh goodness, now I can't think of the place off the top of my head, but there are juicy coffees that come from a certain region. And so it's interesting that this Peruvian kind is a pretty juicy flavor. So again, the notes of white raspberry and Chardonnay, I can definitely tell from crunching that bean that those are some of the flavors that you would get based on the fact that it does have this nice light, juicy, acidic flavor from the bean itself. So you can find out all sorts of coffees that work for you. And this is a cool thing about Trade. They've got a first match guarantee. They're so confident that they're gonna match you right the first time that if they don't, they're gonna take your feedback and an actual coffee expert will work with you to send a brand new bag for free. And I said this before, I kind of wish that they wouldn't have hit the nail on the head just so I could have gone through this process because it would be cool to talk to a coffee expert. But they got it right, so I didn't need to do that. Now, there's no one perfect coffee, but there is a perfect coffee for you, and Trade's human-powered algorithm is going to find it. Yes, human-powered algorithm. Customers are truly impactful for these independent roasters. So you, by being a customer, will impact these roasters because we often end up being the largest source of new growth for these roasters. You're going to get freshly roasted beans from 60 of the country's best craft roasters. These are small businesses who do pay their farmers fair prices. So those sustainably sourced beans are going to be the greatest beans you can find from around the world. And whether your friends call you a coffee snob, like they do call me, or you just know it when coffee tastes really great, Trade's real coffee experts personally taste test over 450 roasts, so they know exactly what to recommend for you. Trade is going to deliver a fresh bag of roasted coffee, and you can get it as whole beans, or you can choose the way that you typically drink coffee, and they're going to grind it perfect for that type of brew right at home. Trade has delivered more than 5 million bags of fresh coffee with more than 750,000 positive reviews. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/iOS today. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Get started by taking their quiz at drinktrade.com/iOS today. Hey, start there and then see if you want to get some coffee. Start there. Go to drinktrade.com/iOS today and let Trade find you a coffee you'll love. Again, drinktrade.com/iOS today for $30 off. And don't forget about Father's Day, which is coming up. A Trade subscription is the perfect gift for the coffee lovers in your life. Thanks so much to Trade for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, back to the show. While I finish crunching on this bean, Rosemary, tell us about some of the new fun features in iPadOS.
Well, the thing with iPadOS is while it didn't get all that many dedicated features this year, there's a whole bunch of features, of course, it shares with the iPhone because that underlying operating system is more or less the same thing, so that we have all of those options available to us. And that's just really cool. I love the fact that, we get big updates. There's also some very specific stuff for the iPad. Now, I've not had a chance to play with things like the new screen resolutions and stuff like that yet, but I did have a little chance to play with Stage Manager. And some people are probably going, wait, what's a Stage Manager? Well, if you think about the iPad right now, what you've got is you've got a big tablet. I've got a 12.9-inch one here, and you might have some widgets and so on the home screen. But if you tap an app in the dock, then the default is that it just opens the app and the whole screen is the app. And you can split the screen by, pulling up the dock and dragging another app over to the other side, or swiping in from the right side, or dragging something onto the little bar splitting between two apps. But it's, it's not necessarily the way that we're used to working, especially if you've got a Mac. And so they brought out Stage Manager on macOS and iPadOS, so that now we have a different way of managing our windows on both devices that works the same way. And the idea with Stage Manager is something activated through the control center, and then you get the dock always appearing and a little sort of tray on the left, or shelf maybe is perhaps a more close analogy, where you've got different applications, and then in your main view you can have different applications and have them overlapping. And I have to say, I was playing with this a little bit yesterday, and I found it pretty nice. So I had something set up where I had a great view, and I don't know if I'm going to find it now. I don't think so. I'll see if I can send Mikah a screenshot. But I've got
Stage Manager on mine if you want to show.
Perfect. And yours is showing up, which is even better, which I love. Because I love the fact that as well as this, I can also drag another app on and have it overlap. So I had drafts next to the Twit website yesterday, and you can resize them. So in the bottom right-hand corner of Mikah's Twitter window, he's got a little resizing option. And it's a little jittery and so on now. I'm sure that's going to improve, but you can make it smaller vertically as well as horizontally, and sort of stack things together, or just leave them overlapping and make them a bit messy, whatever works for you. And I have to say, especially where I'm trying to keep an eye on messages from someone, but I'm actually getting on with other stuff. It's nice to have messages kind of behind something else, mostly out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
So that I can see them come in, and then I've got the things that I'm doing on top of that, so that I'm focused on what I'm doing. But when Mikah replies to my message, I'm good to go, type thing. And that's just, that's really nice that we have these options, and I'm excited about this. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be using this on the Mac personally, but I think on iPad, it's definitely going to be something that's worth looking into, because, it's just so different to what we've had before. And I really like that. So yeah, it's interesting. And also, by the way, Mikah, when I was doing this, I discovered another feature. I don't think Apple announced, but I found it. So in the Messages app, and this is on iPhone as well as iPad, there's little apps underneath your Messages bar. So you've got the camera in the App Store. And if you tap on the App Store one, then you get the apps. There's a new one. There's little audio waves in between the App Store and the Memoji. And this is audio messages. So they've just pulled that into an explicit thing, because previously you could send audio messages, but it was merged into the Messages bar. But as well as improving dictation, they have put audio messages in as their own dedicated little sort of app thing inside of the Messages app, which is pretty cool. I like it. Yes.
So I was just testing
trying
it.
To send an audio message. Yeah, it's great, right? But this is just one of the numbers.
The way that it's set up now is you have to tap and hold in order to send an audio message. And so this lets you just tap and record, stop, and then send, versus only being able to do that tap and hold version of yesteryear. So yeah, I do like that. And I wonder, the reason I'm not showing on screen for folks who are going, why is he not? There's a lot of different messages and things from people who I don't want to show their messages, because that's the way it works on the Mac. If I had it on my iPhone, then I could show it there. But on the Mac, you've got that sidebar that shows other people's messages. And so I'm not going to show that. But you can tap and release immediately, record your message, and then tap and then be able to send it to the person that you're talking to. So yeah, it is nice to have that little app, so to speak, that little iMessage app right there.
Yeah. I've just sent you a screenshot of that you'll be able to share if you want to show people what that looks like, Mikah. It's just sort of like a little audio display at the bottom of Messages, which is pretty cool. And I like that. And it's one of actually a number of new Messages features that we've got, including undo send and mark as unread. Mikah, I think you were a big fan of mark as unread, right? You wanted mark as unread. I seem to remember talking to you about this.
Yes. So back in college, I think I've talked about this before. I went to a neuropsychologist and did do the EEG and all of this other stuff, and was diagnosed with ADHD. And one of the things for me is there are times where a message comes in, and in the moment I will open up the message and look at it, but then something else comes up, or I was looking at the message because it popped up, but I shouldn't have at that moment because I couldn't address it at that moment. And then I will forget entirely. And my mom is totally aware of this. And so she'll sometimes later on joke with me like, oh, is this one of those? Yes, it was one of those times where I forgot. But not everybody that you know is aware of all of your unique quirks. And so having the ability to mark a message as unread until I am in the space where I can actually address it is so nice, because there are times too where I need to triage, and it's like there are 3 messages that I get, and one of them I need to respond to right away, but the other 2, I've got other tasks that I need to do instead right now, but I will forget that I got those messages unless they're still marked as unread. So huge for me, very important. I can't wait to have that. And honestly, that could be the one thing that pushes me to installing the beta on my iPhone, even though it's ill-advised at this time. So yeah, definitely excited about that. Why don't we quickly go through the rest of iPadOS here with some other things that stuck out for you?
Yeah. So one of the things that stood out for me, and this is such a nerdy one. It's such a nerdy one, Mikah. All of the people are going to be writing and going, Rose, you're such a nerd. And that's okay. Printing N-up layouts. So this is something you can do very easily on the Mac, where if you've got, say, a 2-page document and you want to like scale it down so that you've got the pages side by side next to each other when it's printed, you can do that. And there's booklet modes and things like that. We've not been able to do this on the iPad. There have been apps for it and so on, but it involved creating PDFs and so on. And it was always just a faff and a fiddle. And now this is something that's built into iPadOS and iPhoneOS. So that when you go to print, there's an option for create booklet mode. So say you've got a 8-page document and you want to print it into a nice little folding booklet, you can do that right in the iPad without other apps or anything. And you can also just print 4 sheets on one or whatever it is that you want to do, which, I really like. There's also native support for Nintendo Switch controllers, which are somewhat at the opposite end of the spectrum compared to the printing options. So we've had support for Xbox and PlayStation controllers for Apple Arcade and similar games for a while, but now we've got Nintendo Pro controllers, specifically Pro, not Joy-Con. And back in messages, there's also edit, undo, send as well, which are very nice to have. I should note the messages features for edit, undo, and undo send don't work with somebody who's on iOS 15. I have tested this with a couple of people, and they've confirmed that they still see their messages on their device, and one person had a deleted message come through. So I'm not quite sure what's supposed to happen there. I'm sure that will be refined as we go through the process, but it will work between iOS 16 users. So Mikah, if I send you a message to your iPad, then I can unsend it, and you'll still have it on your iPhone at the moment, whilst you're still being sensible, because, unlike me, you actually care whether or not your phone has battery life or doesn't show up as iPhone when you're recording iOS today.
I needed to use my mapping yesterday, and so I didn't install it yesterday because I was worried I was going to end up getting stuck somewhere.
Well, speaking of maps, though, there's a great new feature. So multi-stop. This is something Google Maps has had forever, and I've really wanted that to come to iOS. And you were able to say hey, stop, add a stop at a petrol station or something, but now you can add 15 stops along your route, so you can plan out a whole journey and your whole day basically as one maps route, so that then you can just keep going and get in the car and drive and go to your next stop and continue. And I can't wait to try this out. I will be trying it out on Friday. I have an appointment that I need to drive to, so I'll be testing this out with CarPlay. And I also have a charger for my phone and 3 battery packs in my bag ready to go, because did I mention running a developer beta is a bad idea, folks? Don't do this at home.
Yes, do not try this at home. Let us do it so that you can live vicariously through us and experience these new features without having to worry about your device not working. But the public beta is coming in July, so it's right around the corner. If June moves as quickly as May did, then yes, it's right around the corner.
Yeah. Yes.
Anything else on iPadOS that you want to cover?
Well, just like messages got an undo send, mark as unread, which proxies for sort of remind me about this later. You can actually say, by the way, if you're holding your iPhone, it's unlocked and you've got something on your screen, you can say, remind me about this later, or remind me about this when I get to after the magic Hey Apple Lady incantation. And that will happen. But now Mail has a specific remind me feature built in. Just like lots of applications have got snooze, well, Mail's got remind me later, or remind me, because Apple like to do things a bit differently. However, unlike the remind me feature, there is undo send. So it will just delay sending your email for a short period of time, during which you can go, oh no, that was a bad idea. I misspelled X, or I forgot the attachment. No, you can undo your send. Or maybe you're doing something a bit late at night. Maybe you shouldn't be doing it quite then, and you don't want your boss to know that you actually were working late. You have maybe an errand to run, and it slightly overran at lunchtime or something, and so you catch up a little bit in the evening, so you can schedule a message to send at 8:00 the next morning, so that you really look like you're awake and at your desk and ready to go. And the reality is you're still bubbling around in your pajamas and slippers looking for your coffee. So yeah, send later, remind me, undo send, and editing messages in Messages is all of those are just great, amazing things. And then we've got focus mode upgrades as well.
We'll talk about focus modes in just a second. I just wanted to say I did send a message to Rosemary on my iPad, which is running the beta. I said, hey, Robe. And then I edited the message to change it to Rose, as that is who I was talking to, not Robe. And it shows underneath read at 9:52 a.m. my time. And then there's a little bullet and then it says edited. So it shows that it was, thank you. You sent a screenshot that I can show. So on Rosemary's side, there's not the red option because it was her who was reading it, but there is text beneath it that says edited. So you can see that message was edited. So Rose could go, oh, I see you edited that. Did you have a mistake there? The example they showed on stage was fantastic because it was clearly a colleague speaking to another colleague. The colleague's name was Gabe, and the person put babe instead of Gabe and changed it so that it said Gabe instead of babe, which was really funny and completely relatable for sure. People misspell my name all the time because of autocorrect. Autocorrect will change it to Minaj. It will change it to Mikah with a C. And there's a third one that escapes me at the moment. I had my phone, but somehow I hadn't added you to my contacts, I guess, because I typed your name at one point and it came back with Mickey, as in the mouse. Oh, no.
And it's like, this could not be farther from reality. I just added you to my contacts and that solved the problem. So clearly the correct answer for all of these people is just to add you to the contacts.
Add them. Exactly. That's all they need to do. All right. Yes. I know you're very excited about focus mode. So tell us about focus modes. We'll take another quick break and then we'll head into the rest of the show.
Cool. So focus modes is something we got last year where you can focus on something like work or exercise for a period of time. And this year they have amped them up. So a common thing that I have heard from a lot of people, a frequent refrain as it were, is that people don't want to be blocking apps from sending them, or don't want to be opting apps into sending them notifications. They want to opt apps out of sending them notifications in certain focus modes. So for example, while you are, doing fitness things, maybe you're good with all of your notifications except for your work stuff. Well, now you can actually set that up and you can say, hey, I don't want notifications from these people or these apps in this mode. And instead you get to opt things into it so that you can just see the things that you want. And those filters also have expanded. So we don't just have the filters for a certain app. We can also drill down. So we can get notifications for certain mail accounts, specific mail accounts. So you don't get notifications for all 3 mail accounts while you're working. You only get notifications for your work mail account, for example. Safari has filters where it can jump straight to a specific tab group. Messages has filters as well for certain people. And Calendar, you can even change your default calendars or the calendars that you see in the Calendar app for that focus mode. So for example, again, work versus personal, you might want to just toggle on, say, your work calendar, a work info calendar, which has got things like days off and, group holiday bookings and stuff like that, so that you know when other people are out at the office, and your main, like, my personal appointments one, or whatever it is. And then the rest of the time you see all the rest of them, and that automatically toggles. And they've really listened to the word automation here, because they stole something, Mikah. They stole one of my features that I did in Shortcuts.
What?
I can't believe they did this to me. They did this to me.
How dare.
So one of the things that I've done for a long time, I set this up very early in the iOS 15 beta, because yes, I was silly last year as well, is I changed my Apple Watch face with my focus mode. So when my focus mode switches, I had, and still have, I probably need to get rid of them now, a personal automation inside of Shortcuts, which then sets my watch face. Well, now in the focus mode settings, not only can you change your home screens, where you can select different home screens to show up or not show up, as the case may be, but you can also set your lock screen or lock screens that are available to you, and you can set your watch face so that you can have different watch faces in different focus modes. And I am so excited about this. This is genuinely great for all of those people who would never open the Shortcuts app and go to personal automations. This sort of thing is just being surfaced in a much more accessible manner. There is nothing wrong with Shortcuts. It's got a whole bunch of new features we can talk about later, but I'm really glad that this stuff is just being brought closer to the surface for everybody, because I feel like everybody deserves to have these options. There's also filters for low power mode and dark mode. So if you don't have your phone, for example, switch automatically to dark mode at sunset and then off again at sunrise, and you want your phone in dark mode while you're in, say, the sleep focus, you can now turn that on. And that's just an option, a system setting right there, which is great. I'm really pleased that that exists. So yeah, I've just sent Mikah 2 screenshots of the filters that we could show people for anybody watching the video, where you can set up these app filters so that you get, certain things from certain people. And so I'm very excited because, we've got app and system filters built into focus modes, and yes, we needed this. We really needed this. So I'm glad that they are continually improving things. And this really feels like it answers a lot of people's frequent requests.
I agree. I think that you and Matthew Casanelli should set up a consultancy firm that just sets up focus modes for people, so that they can have, like, it can all be set up how it should be set up, but they don't have to do it. I would pay you money to do it for me, because I think focus modes are great. I just can't ever get myself to sit down and actually set them up in the first place. So let's take a, write that one down.
I was just going to say, Mikah, I'll do a focus mode for you if you do a lift with the iOS 16 feature of one of your dogs into messages, so that I get that later. Because that's a feature we forgot to mention, and I feel like it was built for you because it's just so great.
I think it was. So this is a fun feature. Essentially, using computer vision and those types of AI, different photos that have a clear subject in them can be cut out of a photo and then lifted and placed into, for example, messages. So you can create stickers of your animals very easily. They showed a dog as the example being lifted out from the photo and then copied, or you can even just from there tap to share and have the share sheet pop up. So this isn't just for animals, it's for anything that forms as the subject of the photo. But yes, I will be using that to cut out my dog from lots of different photos and setting those around for sure. All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about Wealthfront, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. So Wealthfront is there to help you figure out the slopes of stock trading. Stock trading can be a wild ride, but the thrill of risking it all, well, it's best enjoyed in moderation. It's kind of like casino gambling or eating questionable street food. If you're playing the market, I hope for your sake that you're stashing some safer money in a place like Wealthfront. You might think that day trading stocks is the secret to investing success, but Wealthfront has a ton of data that shows that time in the market almost always beats timing the market. Their globally diversified portfolios automatically optimize to hit the goals you set and the risk level you choose, and also get you automatic tax breaks that can boost your returns even when the market dips. It's called tax loss harvesting, and they actually invented the software. You can also personalize your portfolio with a selection of funds hand-picked by Wealthfront's financial experts. Categories include social responsibility, clean energy, and cryptocurrency. And Wealthfront is trusted with more than $27 billion in assets, helping nearly 500,000 people build their wealth. And Investopedia just named them their best robo-advisor for 2022. And if we look at the date, that's pretty amazing, considering the year isn't yet halfway over, right? To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/iOS today. That's wealthfront.com/iOS today to start building your wealth. Go to wealthfront.com/iOS today and get started today. And we, of course, thank Wealthfront for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, back to the show. One quick mention for macOS, because it does involve us in the iOS, iPadOS, et cetera, ecosystem. I right now, with the help of the incredible, the amazing, the wonderful Camo, am using an iPhone 12 as my camera for this show. It's an excellent camera. It's the iPhone 12 that I'm not using day to day because I've got my iPhone 13. Well, I am using it day to day as a camera, and it works super well. I've got a cord running to it that's plugged into the back of my studio display, and that's how I do it. But Apple has introduced another option for folks by way of continuity, which is Apple's umbrella term for the different ways that iOS, tvOS, macOS, watchOS, HomePodOS, all of these OSs work together, where you can copy and paste between devices or control different devices using another one. All of that's magic where they just sort of dance back and forth between the different systems so easily. That's Apple's group term called continuity. And the latest continuity feature is what, Rosemary?
The latest continuity feature already existed under this name, but not with this functionality. It's called Continuity Camera. So we've had a feature for a while where you could take a picture from your iPhone and share that to your Mac, if you needed to scan something. But now they've got the ability to use your iPhone as a web camera for your Mac. And they've even got Belkin making MagSafe accessories that fit onto your Mac and your iPhone. So it MagSafes onto the back of your iPhone and balances on the back of your Mac to use this. And honestly, it looks really good. You've got all of those great cameras on the back of your iPhone. But there's another feature that they snuck in there, Mike.
Mind-blowing.
Top-down shot without your phone moving. So imagine that your phone is on an iPad, on a Mac. I've got an iPad in front of me. That's why I got confused there. And so your phone is balanced on the back of a Mac display. Okay, probably a MacBook. But you want like a top-down shot. So your phone stays there and then it uses all of the lenses. And then obviously there's magic involved here. I have no idea what sacrifices these developers made to sleep and the gods to make this happen. I'm sure that there are many bunny gods got lots of chocolate to make this happen. But oh my gosh, it's a top-down shot of your desk and it's amazing. Like it's so without cool. Like hooking up an overhead camera or anything, it looks really good. Now, obviously, in a keynote presentation, you expect things to look amazing, but I'm genuinely thinking that this might actually be really good because you've got all of those cameras together. So, yeah. It's pretty exciting. So somebody's asked in chat room if we think that this means MacBooks with zero bezels and even thinner lid. I mean, the lid on those new MacBook Airs is pretty darn skinny already, but I don't think they're going to get rid of the built-in camera just yet, just because there are so many things where you might just need to pick up your phone to make a note or do what Mikah and I are doing and try and share our phones on screen, at least if you're not running iOS 16 on your iPhone.
Yes. There's so much information from that ultra wide camera that they're able to take that and distort it so that it actually is not distorted. that was a mind-blowing thought that they had. And like, kudos to the developers the engineers at Apple, who came up with that idea and, made it work in practice. That's such a clever thought. I am looking forward to trying that out in the future for the show. Just if it works just fine that way, then I only have to have the one camera. That's so cool. All right. Let us move on to Shortcuts Corner. It's time for Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the shortcuts expert, provides responses. In this case, we are talking about shortcuts updates from WWDC because we need to know about this stuff. So, Rosemary, tell us what you want to talk about with shortcuts at WWDC 2022.
Well, I want to say, first of all, clearly the shortcuts team have been working hard. There is a huge host of new actions, but not only that, they've implemented support for some new UI things which are coming out of WWDC, like adjustable status bars or like menu bars on iPad, so that you can like change what buttons appear in different places, and that sort of stuff has all appeared. And I'm very excited that they've been doing that. But they've added so many new actions, Mikah, so many new actions. They've been listening to the things that people have been requesting, and it's very obvious that they've been listening. And they've added so many features to so many great things. Like, for example, did you know in Maps that now you'll be able to specify where your car is parked, like set your car parked location, or get details of that, or get where you parked your car so that you can, do something with that as part of a shortcut. So if, for example, you've got a partner and you share your car with a partner, and you frequently need to like let them know, like, hey, it was parked over here. Maybe you don't have parking at your place, or like you're parking at like a large outdoor venue of some kind, and like your spouse is going to take, or partner's going to take the car home. Then this way you can have a little shortcut that says, hey, here's where the car is, and sends them like a little thing where they can find it, because obviously their CarPlay doesn't know, like their phone doesn't know where your car was parked.
My partner, he does not like to use Bluetooth with his car stereo. So there's no current way for him to automatically have his car location marked. He has to drop a pin every time. Whereas I use Bluetooth. I don't have CarPlay, but I do have a Bluetooth stereo. And because of the way that the system works, it knows when I disconnect from that via Bluetooth that is where my car was parked. So it automatically marks that location. He's always wanted the automatic marking, but not enough to use Bluetooth, for the reasons that he has for not wanting to use Bluetooth. And so I'm very excited because I'll be able to share a shortcut with him when this is set up that automatically will do this now, instead of it having to be this, whole process. So that's great that he'll be able to mark where his car is.
Yeah, you'll be able to stick an NFC tag on his dashboard, and then he can just tap his phone to it and it'll mark where his car's parked for him. That'll be great. So that's a new feature which just completely snuck in there that I didn't realize was it. Shortcuts didn't get really mentioned at WWDC. There's a whole bunch of things where we're going to find shortcuts just sneaking into everyday life without us having to set up or configure anything, which is really cool. But in the meantime, for us folks who do like creating shortcuts, we got some great new actions like deleting messages, and for messages and Safari and Mail and Calendar, we also got options to configure our focus filter for those, where we can set our focus filter. And this is, I could imagine, will be very good if you reuse your focus modes. So, for example, you've got a working focus mode and you use that for maybe your day job and, something that you're doing on the side. Instead of setting up different ones, you can adjust it quite easily. And they've also added some options for notes. So Notes has had shortcuts support for a while with, creating and finding notes. But you can now add tags explicitly to notes, change modes in notes so that a note can have automatic parsing of, hashtag something as a tag or not, and you can turn that on and off. You can move a note to a folder and you can pin it as well. So, maybe you start up a new project, you create a note and you want to pin it at the top of the folder, and stuff like that. You can change all of those things straight off the bat. They've also got support for the shared album, which was talked about at WWDC, where families have got a shared photo album, and that things will be automatically added based on like your proximity and so on, which I think we need to look at in more depth in the future, Mikah, because I'm very curious about this. But
so
posting to
interested
that,
in this.
Yeah, posting to that is an option. My favorite thing, Mikah, my favorite thing from Safari, tab groups.
Mm-hmm.
Tab groups are in shortcuts. So tab groups are a group of tabs, not dissimilar to bookmarks in many ways, where you can, open several different tabs, and then you can tap on a link and say, open this in a specific tab group. And this is great, but there was no shortcuts support for it. And in fact, there doesn't seem to be any way to get at this data. You couldn't tell Safari to open into a focus mode, or a tab group rather. And that's built into focus modes, but you can also open a specific tab group or create a tab group as part of a shortcut now. So going back to the project example I mentioned, where you create a note, you move it into a folder, you pin it. Great. Now you can also create a tab group with that same name. And, you've got a project where you can put all the tabs for something and your note ready to go. There's also support for just opening new tabs and opening specific views in Safari, which is more for iPad, where you can, switch between different ways of looking at the app, and private tabs as well. And of course, shortcuts got some upgrades where you can search shortcuts specifically, or you can open a shortcut or delete shortcuts, or create shortcuts or open a folder. But Mikah, I think this one is something that people who write into the show frequently are going to love. They added some more setting support for background sounds.
Oh,
so those
okay.
background sounds that you've got where you've got like ocean waves or something, there's now options to set those background sounds and to change those background sounds as part of shortcuts. And I know people frequently write in asking if they can have, the sound that they get when they say, hey, HomePod, play rain sounds or something. And they want to put that into a scene inside of HomeKit. And there hasn't been a way. I've not played with this yet, but I'm wondering if this might actually solve that problem. That would be very interesting if it does. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to file some feedback, because that's part of being a beta tester, right? I have to file the feedback as well.
Indeed. I just did a quick little remove background shortcut where first I said select photos was the shortcut that I set up, and then gave myself the option to select multiple. And then the new feature, which is remove background from, and in this case, it's the photos that I selected. And I'm actually quite impressed. Let me see. I'll quickly run this shortcut and find a photo that is fine to do this with. And then I will show. Yeah, so here we go. Let me switch over. And, that's the wrong device. There we go. So here's my little shortcut called remove backgrounds. And I've given myself the ability to select multiple photos if I want to. I just selected a coffee mug photo. And this photo had, it was sitting on a table and there was a background behind it. I'm actually quite impressed how well it did just off the top. It's not perfect, but that's without me giving it any prompting or saying like, I want this part of the photo or anything like that. So I think this could be a really handy tool for quick options to take the background out of a photo. Although it is interesting given there are quite a few apps on the App Store that aim to do this and do it quickly. So it is a bit of a bummer for them now that it's built in.
Yeah, I have to say, there's lots of apps and I don't think those will go away. I still use Pixelmator for that all the time. And I probably will continue to do so, because usually I'm not just removing the background, I'm then layering some other things in. But this might be a good way to get started for a lot of things. And I love the fact, I did send you a little video, Mikah, of me lifting a picture of a cat and dropping it into a message with you, because it's just so easy now that it's built into iOS. And I love the fact that it does just work. Yeah.
That was so fast too.
Yeah, I just tapped and held on the cat with those really, really big eyes. I don't know where this cat came from. I stole it from the internet, I'm afraid. But it just worked. Just works like that every time. It's great.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
Yeah, it's it's good that Shortcuts got support for this as well. It also got support for optimizing a file size of a PDF. So if you've got a PDF that's huge, then you can optimize that file size. You can change your theme in books and open a specific book or open a collection or a tab, resize text, switch pages, things like that. You can also, however, open a specific mailbox. And I know this is something that a lot of people have asked for, especially those people who've got customized home screens. So a home screen, which is shortcuts icons that will take you to, a certain file, or, in my case, my Safari icon in my dock is actually, it's a purple Safari icon, and it opens a new DuckDuckGo page every time. So I don't get distracted by whatever it was I was looking at before. It just takes me straight to a search where I can then type in an address bar or whatever I need to do. And so for people who wanted to do that and want a specific custom mail icon on their home screen during, say, their work focus mode. So they've got a mail filter set up in their focus mode, so they only get notifications from their work mail account. Well, now they can use the open mailbox action inside of one of those home screen shortcuts to open their work mailbox with whatever icon they choose on their work home screen, which is, just a nice extra to have, which is great. They also finally added support for editing contacts. So we've had editing reminders and calendar events for a little while now. That came out with iOS 15, but we get editing contacts now, I believe. I couldn't find that in iOS 15. I only found that in iOS 16, though it might be that my iOS 15 device was lying to me when it couldn't find that. We'll find out later, I guess. But there's just so many good actions. And not only this, but there's an entire setup that the Shortcuts team have created, which they're giving to developers, which will allow these developers to create more things that will just happen for us as shortcuts without anybody needing to open the Shortcuts app and configure things. And then for those of you who are, willing to get your toes wet, you'll be able to open the Shortcuts app, create a new shortcut, and then the actions are going to significantly increase in number and ability. So that the things that you currently want to do that you're not able to do in those third-party apps, fingers crossed, those developers are going to use this fabulous new Intents API, is what it's called. There's a video about it happening today, which I will be watching later. Fingers crossed that those developers are going to do that and add all those things, because I think that Apple have done their best to make it easy for developers to do so. And Shortcuts is just going to get more powerful every time. We've seen it sneak into a lot of places here, and a lot of things that people have done with Shortcuts have now been built into iOS. So hopefully that's a wonderful life cycle that's just going to keep feeding itself.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Next week, we're going to be talking about the Apple Design Award winners. We'll be covering those apps, which is very exciting. And we will hopefully have some time for some feedback and questions at that point. Today's episode, because it was all-encompassing on WWDC, had a lot to cover. And so we hope that you got at least a brief overview of all the fun stuff. Rosemary and I throughout the week are going to continue to watch sessions. Okay, good. It's still playing. Rosemary and I throughout the week are going to continue to watch sessions and videos and read and check out all the stuff, and we'll continue to bring new bits of information to you as we get it and as we continue to use these devices that are running these different operating systems. So with that, it is time to head into our final segment of the show, App Caps. This is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our head to honor our app or gadget picks of the week. These are the apps or gadgets, or a special thing this time, to honor those apps and say, hey, check these out. These are well worth your time. This is something that you should look into. So with that, Rosemary Orchard, tell us about your idea for app caps this week. Then tell us about the cap atop your head, and then tell us about your pick.
Well, I thought as this week we're talking all iOS 16 and the amazing things we'll be getting in September, if you are a much more sensible person than I and do not immediately hop on the developer beta train. Please, people, don't do that. Wait for the public betas at least. And so I thought it would be fun to look back at iOS 15 and previous iOSs and think of what features people don't necessarily know about, that are kind of hidden there. And I was thinking of things like, when you go to print something and that little preview pops up, if you pinch on the preview, then you'll get a PDF of whatever it is, which is really useful for various different documents that don't want you to have PDFs of them for whatever reason. But you can still get one if they let you print it. So that's quite a nice way to make a PDF in mail as a workaround as well. And Mikah liked the idea, right? But he already had an app cap. So I've deliberately snuck an extra feature in there. But the cap atop my head it's my Mac stock, I think a 2019 cap. It's a black cap with peace, love, and Macs. There's a little Apple Lisa, I believe. No, the classic Mac. There's a classic Mac on here. I thought in honor of WWDC, I should go with peace, love, and Macs. Because of course it's also Pride Month, so everybody should feel loved. But my real trick that I wanted to talk about are the advanced camera settings inside of the settings and the camera app, which I feel everybody ought to check out, because there are so many things. And I wowed somebody when I was on a ferry in New York. She asked if I could take a picture of her. And so I took a picture, but it was in 4:3. And I just needed to get a bit more of the background in to make it a great shot. So I tapped the little up arrow underneath the camera and I changed my aspect ratio. And down at the bottom, there are 3 options: square, 4:3, and 16:9. So I changed it to 16:9, got a great shot for her, set it back because she already looked a little bit panicked. And she said, "Wow, you're a professional." And no, I'm not a professional. I just know some of these great hidden features in the camera. And I think that there's a lot of things that people just don't really play with. Like they might switch to portrait mode or panoramic mode or video and slow mode. But aside from that, people don't really play. And there's so many great things built in, like filters and the aspect ratio and so on. But there's also options to turn on, for example, that 3:3 grid so that you can follow the rule of thirds if you want to. And all of those are hidden inside the camera and in the settings. So yes, so Mikah's got some pictures up. So this is just the camera app, obviously. And then if in the next picture, you can see if I've tapped the up arrow, then some of these options are at the bottom. It's also, hey, you can control the flash. So if you specifically want the flash off for a picture or on, you can turn that on. There are some other options, but then the one that a lot of people are looking for because they want to take an Instagram photo is the one that says 4:3. 4:3, and when you tap that one, then in that next shot, then it will show you that it gives you the options where you can switch to square or 16:9. And then after you switch, it just immediately, you don't get left on that menu. It's just changed it to a square. And I've got that rule of third grids on there, which I talked about as well, which is nice. And so go have a play with the camera app, folks. Have a look in settings underneath the camera option. So, this is, what an actual shot of my desk looks like right now. A bit of a mess because I'm recording iOS today, so I've got everything everywhere. But that's what it's like in square mode. But you can change things in settings. Go have a play. We can put some links to some great Apple support documents that tell us about these things in the show notes. But these features are right there, and so many people don't know about them. I was amazed this lady didn't realize that she could take a 16:9 photo on her iPhone, and I got a really great shot with it for her. So hopefully she likes that. So yeah, go have a play, dig around in settings. You never know what feature you might find, and feel free to share that with us as well in the feedback.
Absolutely. So this still falls within the scope of Rosemary's suggestion. I didn't even realize this. So late last week, I downloaded an app and started playing with it. And I was like, this is so much fun. And I reached out to the developer on Twitter and said, hey, love this app. And I'm going to be showing it on iOS today. So I didn't want to go back on my word there. So that's why I'm showing it today. But it actually kind of falls in because this is an app created by a designer/developer, a person as you can see, I'm a product designer with a history of hacking stuff together. And this is Clarko. So Clarko has this app called Good Day World. And the app, you can find it goodayworld.app, GDAY world.app, or we'll have a link, of course, to the App Store version. It's available for free. And it's got some text in here that's really cleverly written, just talking about, Clarko's thoughts on designers being developers or designers coding. Very easy way to send an email or share if you want to. This was mostly created using Swift and Swift UI. And it just shows some of the features that are built into the app. And so one example here is, or built into the app, built into the operating system. So if I tap on this, it will show some different places that are well worth checking out in Cupertino. This place called Chicken Meets Rice, the Kiwa Bakery, Ike's, BJ's Brewery, Gochi Japanese. I think I've eaten there and it was very, very, very good. And then this option over here is for being able to play a musical sampler. So I'm giving it access to be able to control my library. And then it's just going to play some music, which you should not be able to hear, which is fine, from the store, which I'm going to pause that. And then we're going to go into switched on and it talks about toggles. Now check this out. As we go down, you can read about them, but each of these toggles is actually toggleable. So I can tap to turn them on and off. And then on the right side, some animations to show how toggles can be turned on and off and display different animations based on what you are doing with them. And then there are options here for turning off these different features and turning them on, and you can turn those off and on. And then we'll go back and we'll go into these checkboxes here. So that's just showing you kind of how those checkboxes work. And then my favorite one is, so this one's kind of fun too. I'll mention this one briefly. All throughout here, it shows how different autocorrect versions work. So the first one that they have is, that Clarko has is typing with autocorrect. And then he challenges you to type without autocorrect in the next one. All caps options, typing with each word capitalized, with sentences capitalized, typing with no capitalizations. And then typing with SpongeBob case, whoops, and we'll tap done. And you can see that it changes that one. That, of course, is not a built-in autocorrect feature. That's why it says, okay, this one's fake. And then we'll go back to this, which is my favorite one. It shows different keyboards that will be shown to you based on different text fields or number fields that you're trying to access. So the first one is the default one. And when you tap on it, the keyboard actually pops up. I'll change it to the ASCII capable keyboard, which looks like it's the same, but it actually restricts you to certain keys that are not ASCII capable. So for example, emoji aren't showing up there. The number pad and the ASCII capable number pad, numbers and punctuation. So it starts with the numbers and then you can change it over to the letters. And then it even has the Twitter variant of the keyboard where the @ sign is shown in the bottom right-hand corner, and the pound sign or the octothorpe, the email address field, the URL keyboard, the web search keyboard, the decimal pad. It adds a dot for, if you're doing decimal stuff. The phone pad, which has extra keys for dialing and international and also being able to go through phone trees. And then the name phone pad, which looks almost like the keyboard, but it just doesn't have the punctuation for a number pad. So when you switch it over to the other one, it just shows you that. Those keyboards are all accessible and you can see kind of what they look like, how they work in those different places right there in the app. And then Clarko is going to continue to keep this app updated with new things that he comes across as is using them, which is super cool as well. And so, yeah, I had to shout out Clarko. Let me see, Twitter. I had to shout out the developer and say, like, this is just so fun for me as a person who is not a developer first and foremost at all, to create something where I can kind of play around with it and get a little bit more insight into how the system works. This is definitely an app that I would want to have created. I think it's really cool and just a lot of fun. So that is called, again, G'day World, available completely for free to get at g'dayworld.app. So check that out for free, no ads or anything like that, no in-app purchases on the App Store. With that, we have reached the end of this episode of iOS Today. Thank you for watching. If you have questions, feedback, etc., we will get to as many of them as we can when we can. You can send those to iOS2day@twit.tv. We record this show live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific. And we'd love it if you tuned in by going to twit.tv/live. But we think that the best way to get the show, if you can't join us live, is to go to twit.tv/iOS. There, you can subscribe to the show in audio or video format across a whole range of places: Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, all the different places, even just a plain old RSS feed. We do try to be in all of those places. So subscribe to the show that way, and then you're going to get it as soon as it's available. If you would like to get all of our shows ad-free, we do have a way to do that. You'll also be supporting us directly. You just go to twit.tv/clubtwit, and for $7 a month, you too can become a member of Club Twit. With that, you will gain access to every single Twit show with no ads. You'll have your own personal feed for each of those shows. You'll also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, including AMAs and book clubs and all sorts of fun stuff that takes place in the club that we then publish to the Twit Plus bonus feed, and access to the Discord server. That is the place where you can go to hang out with your fellow Club Twit members, but also those of us here at Twit are often there in the Discord hanging out. Twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. Head there, check it out, and support us directly. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where should they go to do so?
The best place to go is rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all the different things I do around the internet. But of course, you can also find me hanging out in the Club Twit Discord, and of course on Twitter at Rosemary Orchard. Mikah, where can people find you?
I can be found at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. Yes, it's a real place. CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Check me out actually today, in not too very long. I'll be on MacBreak Weekly as Renee is elsewhere. You can probably guess. And we'll be joining for all of the WWDC coverage on MacBreak Weekly. But typically, check me out on Thursdays for Tech News Weekly, which I record with Jason Howell, where we talk to the people making and breaking the tech news, and Saturdays on The Tech Guy, the radio show heard around the world, where Leo Laporte and I take your questions, your tech questions, and try to answer them on the show. Thank you for tuning in. We hope that you are as excited as we are about the next set of features for all the different operating systems. We're going to be digging into it, like I said, so stay tuned for even more. And I am so excited, Rosemary, for next week when we get to talk about the most incredible apps of the year in terms of Apple's design beliefs. So very, very cool. Very much looking forward to that. Until next time, we say goodbye.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor of Ad Astra magazine, and each week I'm joined by Tarek Malik, the editor-in-chief over at space.com, in our new This Week in Space podcast. Every Friday, Tarek and I take a deep dive into the stories that define the new space age. What's NASA up to? When will Americans once again set foot on the moon? And how about those samples from the Perseverance rover? When are those coming home? What the heck has Elon Musk done now? In addition to all the latest and greatest in space exploration, we'll take an occasional look at bits of spaceflight history that you probably never heard of, and all with an eye towards having a good time along the way. Check us out on your favorite podcatcher.